Seats, and silence the electronic devices, please. Thank you. Seats, and silence the electronic devices, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's ceremony where the men and women of United States Transportation Command pay special tribute to Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan on the occasion of his retirement as a civilian with the United States government after 37 years of dedicated service to our country. I am Mr. Ken Martin and I will be your narrator. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is the Commander, United States Transportation Command, General Randall Reed. For the past 12 years of his career, Mr. Brennan has served as a member of the Senior Executive Service, or SES. The government established the SES to ensure that the executive management of the government of the United States is responsive to the needs, policies, and goals of the nation and is of the highest quality. Members of the SES serve in key positions below top presidential appointees and represent the highest quality of government leaders with well-honed executive skills. Mr. Brennan is the equivalent of a two-star general officer. At this time, we would like to recognize our distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until all the guests have been introduced. Mr. Brennan's spouse, Kelly, their son, Benjamin, and his wife, H.J., their daughter, Alexandra, and her fiance, Timothy, Mr. Brennan's parents, Michael and Francis, his sister, Michelle, and his spouse, Keith, her spouse, Keith, his brother, Charles, and his spouse, Courtney, his sister-in-law, Kimberly, and her spouse, Timothy. We would also like to welcome the spouse of our commander, Miss Lynn Reed, the Deputy Commander, Air Mobility Command, Lieutenant General Rebecca Sonkis, the former Deputy Commander, United States Transportation Command, Lieutenant General Retired John Sullivan and his spouse, Jennifer, our Command Senior Enlisted Leader, Chief Master Sergeant Brian Krzelnik, all other general officers, flag officers, senior executive service personnel, directors, deputy directors, senior enlisted leaders, co-workers, friends, and family joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of ruffles and flourishes, presentation of the colors, the national anthem, and the invocation. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's ceremony. Color Guard, where the men and women of the United States Transportation Command pay special tribute to Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan on the occasion of his retirement as a civilian with the United States government after 37 years of dedicated service to our country. I am Mr. Ken Martin, and I will be your narrator. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is the Commander, United States Transportation Command, General Randall Reed. For the past 12 years of his career, Mr. Brennan has served as a member of the Senior Executive Service, or SES. The government established the SES to ensure that the executive management of the government of the United States is responsive to the needs, policies, and goals of the nation, and otherwise is of the highest quality. Members of the SES serve in key positions below top presidential appointees and represent the highest quality of government leaders with well-known executive skills. Mr. Brennan is the equivalent of a two-star general officer. At this time, we would like to recognize our distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until all the guests have been introduced. Mr. Brennan's spouse, Kelly, their son, Benjamin, and his wife, H.J., their daughter, Alexandra, and her fiance, Timothy, Mr. Brennan's parents, Michael and Francis, his sister, Michelle, and her spouse, Keith, his brother, Charles, and his spouse, Courtney, his sister-in-law, Kimberly, and her spouse, Timothy. We would also like to welcome the spouse of our commander, Miss Lynn Reed, the Deputy Commander, Air Mobility Command, Lieutenant General Rebecca Sonkis, the former Deputy Commander, United States Transportation Command, Lieutenant General Retired John Sullivan and his spouse, Jennifer. Our Command Senior Enlisted
Chaplain Webster
Leader,
will now
Chief
provide
Master
the
Sergeant
invocation.
Brian Krzelnik. All other general officers,
Would you
flag
join me in
officers,
prayer?
senior executive service personnel.
Oh, give thanks to the
directors,
Lord, for
deputy
he is good,
directors, senior
for his
enlisted
mercy
leaders,
endures forever.
coworkers, friends, and
Today we
family
pause
joining
and
us
reflect
today.
on the decades of dedicated service Mr. Brennan has provided for our country and for our warfighters. I ask that Kenneth, along with his wife Kelly,
Ladies and gentlemen,
children
please
Ben
stand
and
for
Alex,
the arrival of the official
parents
party
Mike
and remain standing
and
for the
Fran,
playing of ruffles
and
and
all his
flourishes,
family members gathered with
presentation
us
of the
today
colors, the
would
national
know and
anthem,
understand
and
the lasting
invocation.
impact each one has made. May the fruit of their labor and support for our nation flourish for generations. Lord, as Kenneth and Kelly prepare for the next season of life in Indiana, I ask that you continue to bless them so that they in turn can be a blessing to their family, their community, and to any endeavor to which you call them. May today be a celebration of remembrance, of family reunion, and anticipation for the next chapter of life. To God our Savior, who
afternoon,
alone
ladies
is
and
wise,
gentlemen.
be glory and
Welcome to
majesty,
today's ceremony.
dominion
Color
and
Guard,
power,
present the
both
colors.
now and
United
forever.
States
Amen.
Command pay special tribute to Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan. On the Thank you, occasion of his Chaplain Webster. retirement, Ladies and gentlemen, civilian please be with the seated. United States government after 37 years of dedicated
General Reed, the
service
floor
to
is
our
yours.
country. I am Mr. Ken Martin, and I will be your narrator. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is the Commander, United States Transportation Command.
Good afternoon and happy Friday to everybody who is
For the
here
past
and
12
to
years of
some
his career,
wonderful
Mr.
family
Brennan
that's
has
shown
served
up.
as
Where's
a
Bruce
member of
Russell?
the
He's
Senior
here somewhere.
Executive
Thank you so
Service,
much, Bruce, for
or
showing up as
SES.
well.
The government
And
established
also
the
thank you
SES
to all of
to
those
ensure that
of
the
you who
executive
are here
management of
live
the
streaming.
government of the United
We're here to
States
honor one of the
responsive to
United
needs,
States Transportation
policies,
Command's finest
goals
leaders.
of the nation, and
A leader of character,
otherwise
a
of
leader
the
with
highest
class,
quality.
and a leader with a
Members of the
stellar
SES serve in
reputation that
key
extends
positions
across the
below top
entire
presidential
Department of
appointees
Defense,
and
most
represent the highest
importantly
quality
across
of government
the
leaders
transportation
with well-known
industry.
executive skills.
This year, ladies and
Mr.
gentlemen,
Brennan is the equivalent of
Ken
a
marks
three-star
12
general
years
officer.
of senior
At this
executive
time, we
service
would like to
leadership.
recognize our distinguished
12 years.
guests.
That's
Please hold
12
your
years of
applause until all the
responsibility
guests
and
have been
decision-making
introduced.
at the general and
Mr.
flag
Brennan's
officer
spouse,
level.
Kelly,
And there's no way to
their
carry
son,
that
Benjamin,
load without
and his
powerful
wife, H.J.,
influencers in one's
their
life.
daughter,
And
Alexandra,
today we are
and
happy
her
to see that
fiancé,
Ken
Timothy,
has a large number
Mr. Brennan's
of those
parents,
influencers
Francis,
who together have tallied more than
his sister,
3,760 miles of travel to
spouse,
be here today to share this moment with him.
his brother, Charles,
I want to begin with our
and his
favorite Kelly.
spouse, Courtney,
As the story goes,
his
back in the
sister-in-law,
day,
Kimberly, and her spouse, Timothy.
Kelly left their
We
first
would also
meeting
like to
thinking
welcome
Ken was a nerd.
the spouse of our commander, Miss Lynn Reed.
But it did not take her
The
long
Deputy
to agree
Commander,
to the
Air
first
Mobility
date
Command,
that Ken
Lieutenant
arranged
General
while on a
Rebecca
trip to
Sonkis,
California. Good so
the
far?
former Deputy
Okay.
Commander, United
On his
States
return from
Transportation
California,
Command,
her heart
Lieutenant
softened
General
when
retired
he presented
John
her
Sullivan
with
and
a
his spouse,
Tigger
Jennifer.
plush from Disneyland.
Our
Kelly,
command
after
senior
33
Chaplain
years,
Webster will now provide the
can you
invocation.
tell us
Ryan
what happened
Przelnick.
to Tigger?
All other general officers,
Ladies and
flag
gentlemen.
officers, senior executive service personnel,
Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good,
senior
for his mercy
leaders,
endures forever.
Go nerds.
friends,
Today,
and
we
family
pause
joining
and
us
reflect
today.
on the decades of
Ken's
dedicated
children,
service
Ben and Alex,
Mr. Brennan
flew in
has
from
provided for our
California and
country
Virginia with their
and for our
spouse and
warfighters.
soon-to-be spouse. Welcome
I ask
to
that
all of
Kenneth,
you.
along with his wife
Both
Kelly,
of you,
Ladies and
Ben
gentlemen,
children
please
and
Ben
stand
and
for the
Alex,
arrival of the
over
official
parents
party
Mike
and remain standing
and
for the
Fran,
playing of
forged their
Bravo
own
and all of his
fantastic
family members
paths
gathered
and caused
here
your
today
dad to beam with pride.
would
national
know and
anthem
understand
and
the
the
lasting
invocation.
impact each
To
one
parents,
has
Mike and
made.
Fran, welcome.
May the
We had a
fruit of
great
their
time chatting
labor
with you
and
earlier.
support
Mike,
for our
thank
nation
you for your
flourish for
service in the Navy.
generations.
And Fran,
Lord,
well
as
done
Kenneth and Kelly
demonstrating
prepare for the next
adaptability
season of life in
career and thank
Indiana,
you.
I ask that you
Congratulations
continue to bless
on raising
them
a fine son
so that
who
they in
still
turn can
values
be a blessing to their
adaptability,
family, their
integrity,
community,
and
and
service.
to any endeavor to which
You
you
raised
called
a
them.
man who never lost
May
his
today be
grounding,
a celebration
and
of
we are all better
remembrance,
for it.
a family reunion,
Ken's siblings,
and
in-laws, and
anticipation for
extended
the next
family,
chapter of life.
thanks for contributing to the
To God our Savior,
3,760
who alone is
mile travel
wise,
tally.
be glory and
Your
majesty.
presence alone
Color
is a
guard,
testament to the
present the
quality of
colors.
man
Now
who
and forever.
sacrificed so much to provide freedom for so
Pay
many.
special tribute to Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan.
For those who know Ken
Thank you,
well,
Chaplain
it is no
Webster.
secret
Ladies and
he is the
gentlemen,
kind
please
of
be
person
seated.
who leads without ever
After
needing or
37
seeking
years
the
of
spotlight.
dedicated
General Reed, the floor is yours.
It's not because he hasn't earned it,
Ken Martin
he
and I
certainly
will be
has.
your narrator.
One of Ken's superpowers stems from being the quiet force in the room. At least for today, we're making him a headline. Good afternoon and happy Friday to Ken's come everybody full who's circle.
Oh,
here and to some
Here
here at US Transcom, we are all about joint mobility,
Thank
planes,
you
so much,
trains,
Bruce, for
ships,
showing
trucks,
up
and
as
more. Ken began his story in
also
LaPorte,
thank you to
Indiana,
all of those
in the shadows of joint mobility. Freshwater shipping lanes, major interstates, and rail cars. His summer job on a railroad tie gang taught him the pride that comes from skilled work. He'll tell you that he learned a railroad spike could be driven in 3 hits and hidden under a dime, and that he lost $20 learning that lesson this year. But I suspect what struck him more than the lost wager was a respect for quiet mastery. That's the thread that runs through Ken's career. He notices the dignity in other people's work. After graduating from Rose-Hulman as an engineer, Ken joined the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Crane, Indiana. At Crane, he helped develop Trident weapon systems, those used on American submarines. He quickly proved himself not only technically gifted, but strategically minded. Even then, he was looking beyond the scope of the drawing board, always connecting the parts to the whole. As the story goes, in 2001, he and his family moved to Washington, D.C. to broaden their worldview
our commander.
His first day at work at the Navy Yard was September 10th,
Deputy
2001.
Commander, Air Mobility Command.
By the next
Ken
morning,
arranged
the
an
meaning of
all-on
his work
exercise
shifted
in
permanently, and he was there to
Former
support
Deputy
the
Commander,
warfighter.
United
On his
States
return from
Transportation
California, that experience lit a fuse. Over the next 2 decades, Ken climbed the ranks of Navy and Pentagon leadership, culminating in what many would consider his professional magnum opus, Department of Defense Instruction 5000.74. Now, I know 5000.74 sounds like something only a contracting nerd would love, but it's his masterwork. In fact, it reshaped how the entire Department of Defense acquires services that account for nearly half of all of the department's spending. It required buy-in from every service, which is almost impossible to get. It required endless amount of coalition building, vision, and patience. And if you know Ken, you know that those are his tools of choice. The punchline, of course, is that when he got to U.S. Transcom, he had to live with the very policy he wrote. Ken joined us in 2019, and he fit in immediately. He had worked with U.S. Transcom before, noticing that the command problem solved and didn't play the blame game. It was a perfect match. Under his guidance, we transitioned to full-scale telework during COVID without losing a single mission or a single employee. He oversaw the third largest service contract ever in the history of the military through all of its ups and downs, and he never backed down from a challenge. When I got in the seat, whenever I have a meeting with Ken, he was always 10 steps ahead of me. But you have to know his tells. When you watch Ken in a meeting, his body language says all, and he has this way of kind of pulling his notes back towards himself and just kind of folding it closed and sitting up, and then you knew you said something stupid. But Ken was going to coach you through it, and I thank you for all the times that you did that with me. Over the last few months, we reached out to Ken's old colleagues and former commanders, and they always repeated the same thing. He mentored those who will be leading the department tomorrow and for years to come. Ken regularly checked in with his people. He created new leadership opportunities to develop a stronger team. He coached, he listened, and he reminded people that hard problems are worth solving. And somehow, among all this, he stayed Ken. The guy with the Hawaiian shirt collection. The guy who dons amazing suits as an accessory to his ponytail. The guy who quotes down Periscope. The guy who buys too many guitars for someone with only 2 hands. He's a brewer and a photographer. He's an obsessive hobbyist who, if legend holds, is preparing to form a rock band with his sister-in-law Courtney on vocals. Ladies and gentlemen, in a moment, we're going to present Ken with a medal. The narrator is going to ask us all to stand, and we'll read the citation. I'm not going to repeat the citation here at all, but I do want to provide context so that everyone here understands exactly what personal dedication and selfless leadership can accomplish. So first of all, you have to know that over 90% of Transcom movements happen with the help of commercial industry, mainly through contracts. On any given day like today, U.S. Transcom moves the following with a combination of military and commercial means. Over 1,500 freight shipments, 40 air refueling sorties in flight, 200 rail cars en route, 30 ships on the seas, 20 defense couriers scurrying the globe, 400 airlift sorties, 1,000 personal vehicle and property shipments, and 10 patients via air evacuation. Add to that, every 2 to 3 minutes, Transcom has an aircraft landing or taking off. That's any given day. But that gets harder when you're in times like COVID, when ports close, but the mission continues. And during that time, we talked about Ken transitioning the headquarters to telework. In just a 4-day buy period, he was able to generate his team to buy over 1,700 laptops to keep the mission going so that despite the fact that ports are closed around the world, the mission can still roll. Somehow, we had to find a way to get 5,400 Americans who were stranded around the world back to the United States. Ken led his team to make sure that he could bring all of those people back home. Even during COVID, we had to support people that still had to do the mission abroad. And so, Ken, thank you to you and your team who supported those of us like Len and I who were overseas and stranded during COVID, who had no means to get supported from our host nation with COVID vaccines. And you found a way to make sure that even abroad we could get those vaccines. In the wake of COVID, everything was trying to snap back to normal with supply chains, but a lot of the conveyances weren't there, and the demand for transportation was really high and prices were very inflated. You were able to work the contracts to make sure that the government still got a reasonable price and that we still got full support for everything that we had to move around the world. That's no small feat. And then immediately in the wake of that, we were able to pull off the largest non-combatant evacuation operation in the history of the world. And you and your team are right there in the forefront of that. And so on any given day, we are doing amazing things, but when things get tough, we always turn to Ken to make sure that he could see us through. And for that, I just want to say thank you for everything. Now he's heading back to LaPorte, back to the quiet place where his story began, but it's not a retreat. It's a return. A return to family and the simple joys he put on pause while serving the nation. There's something poetic about that a man who wrote policies for a global enterprise is now focused on brewing beer in the basement with his family upstairs. Let me close with this. You often hear people ask, what's the right stuff? In Ken's case, we might start with what he'd call the wrong stuff. He'll tell you he was a bad engineer, that he did not go to officer candidate school because the Navy had rules about beards and ponytails, that he just wanted a job when he started out, and that, as Ken always said, he's been luckier than he's been good. But here's what he's always had, and what I believe is the real right stuff, is the ability to see the bigger picture and to accompany others to also see it. Ken Brennan has given us a standard. Thank you, Ken, for the policies you wrote, the programs you led, the teams you built, and the values you modeled. Thank you for showing us that quiet excellence is still excellence, and that leadership is as much about how you treat people as it is about what you achieve. Ken, on behalf of U.S. Transcom, the Department of Defense, and every teammate lucky enough to serve with you, thank you. And now may your next mission be just as joyful, even if it includes more guitars than regulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as General Reed presents the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joint Distinguished Civilian Service Medal to Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan. Attention to orders. Citation to accompany the award of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joint Distinguished Civilian Service Medal to Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan. Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan distinguished himself by exceptionally superior service as Director, Acquisition, United States Transportation Command, Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, from 4 February 2019 to 30 September 2025. During this period, Mr. Brennan's outstanding leadership resulted in major contributions to the national security of the United States. His leadership in managing over $50 billion of life cycle transportation and related services and information technology support for the Department of Defense's Global Transportation Distribution Mission has been key in executing the Command's Unified Command Plan mission set. He has supported global partners with more than 2,700 international airlift missions, 1,200 domestic airlift missions, and 900 sealift moves, to include delivering critical aid to Ukraine through over 800 airlift missions. He provided commercial mission support and information technology capabilities for 78 brigades, over 61,000 aircraft, 1.55 million passengers, and 570,000 tons of cargo. His strategic leadership in the Cloud Optimal DevSecOps ecosystem, Global Household Goods Program, and Joint Transportation Management System has transformed transportation acquisition with improved capabilities, significant cost savings, and key performance enhancements. The distinctive accomplishments of Mr. Brennan while serving his country reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Air Force, the United States Transportation Command, and the Department of Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, Mr. Brennan will be presented his certificate of retirement. The certificate reads, Certificate of Service from the United States Air Force. This is to recognize Mr. Kenneth M. Brennan for 37 years of faithful and devoted federal civilian service on the occasion of retirement from employment with the United States Air Force. Given this 30th day of September 2025, signed, General Randall Reed, United States Air Force, Commander, United States Transportation Command. Mrs. Brennan, will you please join your husband on stage? Every retiree receives a special retirement pin as a memento of his or her service. At this time, we'd like to ask Mrs. Brennan to place this pin on Mr. Brennan's lapel to symbolize his transition from active civil service to retired status. This pin stands as a testament of his service to our great nation. To all who see it, know that Mr. Kenneth Brennan has met all challenges set before him and has served our country with pride, honor, and dignity. Every successful military member knows and understands the value of the contributions of his or her family to the member's career, especially the efforts of the spouse. General Reed will now present Mrs. Brennan with a spouse certificate of appreciation, which reads, Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Mrs. Kelly Brennan for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service, given this 30th day of September 2025. Signed, Randall Reed, General, United States Air Force, Commander, United States Transportation Command. Thank you, Mrs. Brennan and General Reed. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Transportation Command Joint Service Color Guard will now make a special presentation to Mr. Brennan. It is only fitting that those who serve this country be honored with a presentation of the flag of the nation. For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of its citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and the design of the flag evolved into the flag represented before you today. 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor, White signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on a constellation of Air Force satellites that circle our globe and on the fin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every American who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's military remains committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, America's military has proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for freedom, for the freedom we all share, and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce for the very first time, Mr. Kenneth Brennan, retired.
Thank you, Ken, for the introduction. I don't know that I can cover 37 years of experience in a short period of time, so I will try to limit this to 90 minutes. Just kidding, I will keep this short and sweet, much of which will be just to expound a bit on General Reed's speech. Normally I speak without notes, but I have given an event this magnitude, I felt it best to have them. More critically though, I actually prepared. I do most of my speeches off of the cuff, but in honor of my parents, I did not procrastinate. I actually did prepare. I'd like to start by thanking the commander, the band, the color guard, Chaplain Webster, Mariah, Stacy, and the whole protocol team, Ken and Autumn from my front office, and all who are involved in putting this effort together. This is a Herculean undertaking, and Kelly and I certainly appreciate all the effort that went into making today a success. Thank you all to who are attending today, especially Ms. Lynn, Deputy Commander AMC, General Sonkis, former Deputy John Sullivan. Jen, good to see you, as well as all of my family who made the trip. Scheduling a retirement ceremony 3 months after I stopped going to work is a bit of a risk. But I am glad you were here helping me celebrate this milestone. Preparing for today, I got quite nostalgic, and as I thought back, I really did get to participate in some fun events, some neat things. As a civilian, I got to travel the world. I've been on submarines, I've been on destroyers, I've been on carriers. I got to use C4 explosives. I flew on a C-17 and I got to depart the Pentagon on a Black Hawk helicopter. Those things don't normally happen to civilians, even within the government, let alone in the general population. But the most poignant memories that I have are those related to the people. I want to share a few of those with you. As the general commented, I graduated in May of 1988. Ancient history to a number of people in this room, I'm sure, including my kids. I interviewed at a place called the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Crane, Indiana. I didn't know the town even existed. I didn't know the Warfare Center was even down there, but as it turned out, it was a good fit. All I knew is I needed a job. So I started on the 1st of July of 1988, a Friday, which made the first weekend a 3-day weekend. Score, this is good, I like this. Little did I know that the job would turn into a career and a calling, and here we are in 2025. As the general mentioned earlier in my time at Crane, I realized I was not cut out to be an engineer, despite the degree. While competent, I wanted to focus more on people over the engineering. I wanted to move into supervision and leadership. I bring this up for those in the crowd who might be still trying to manage what they want to be when they grow up. I could not have implemented that change alone. I am grateful to the mentors that I had during that time because they helped me sort through the things that needed to change in my career path, and more importantly, facilitated that change. If you are a leader, mentor your workforce. If you are more junior, seek out good mentors to help you with those career choices. It doesn't have to be as drastic as a change from your career field, but those mentors are there to help you, and they will help you. Shifting gears a bit, my career has really been built on the maxim that life is 5% what happens to you and 95% how you react. 2 unexpected events in the middle of my career helped define the person that I have become. The first was in late 1999. I was a supervisor over rechargeable batteries. We had a responsibility to demilitarize a battery that powered Minuteman silos. Size of a file cabinet, 750 pounds, that could power your house for weeks. And each missile silo had 3 of these, and all the missile silos were being upgraded. So we put them in a bunker to discharge the electricity, but we knew that it was dangerous. And despite having a mitigation plan or a risk mitigation plan in place, one of them did indeed short circuit, and it took the rest of the 64 batteries with it. When they vent, which is how they failed, it's indistinguishable from an explosion. It blew the doors open on a 5,000 square foot underground earthen bunker. When we responded, thick black and gray smoke was rising into the winter air, and pieces were being ejected by subsequent explosions, so we let it burn out. But that was not without significant environmental concerns. It just helped protect the firefighters and first responders. At roughly 2 o'clock in the morning, approximately 12 hours into the event, I was briefing the regional director of the EPA because we were contemplating whether or not we needed to evacuate the village of Crane, which was outside of the base. I I get a little distracted when I speak, but I knew as I was speaking to that administrator that my career was going through a nexus at that point. I was either going to survive and have the potential to do well in the future, or my career was essentially over that night. Thanks to the strength of the team, there were no injuries or required evacuation, and my career went on. So as you encounter roadblocks, or even worse, setbacks during your career, remember that 95% reaction part. React professionally, competently, and effectively, and you'll put yourself in good stead for potential future success. The second event was more significant, and the general talked about this. About a year later, in 2001, after significant family discussion, I applied and was accepted to a competitive mid-career growth program at the Naval Sea Systems Command that required a PCS relocation from Indiana. We PCS'd to Northern Virginia, got settled in for my first day at NAVSEA headquarters in the Washington Navy Yard on Monday, 10 September 2001. I had no phone, I had no email, I didn't even have an office. We were camped out in a conference room. Tuesday, the world changed. On 9/11, I could see smoke from the Pentagon from our office. When we rode home on Metro, it was a distinct difference because the trip in was very quiet. Everybody was very much into their own newspapers, and for those few, their cell phones. Going home that night and the subsequent week, there was a lot of discussion. How was everybody doing? How was the family? Did everybody survive? And if not, how were we recovering? How were we helping? It wasn't limited to the DC area. Cell phone towers were jam-packed, but eventually Kelly's sister Kim, who's in the audience, called out and offered to drive out and bring us all back to Indiana. We didn't know what we were up against. We didn't know how long it was going to last. But we knew that we had a mission to accomplish, so we turned down Kim's offer, and I went back to work on Wednesday the 12th. It was a weird day. No traffic. No air traffic into National Airport. Black Hawk helicopters everywhere. The fire is still burning at the attack site helped motivate us to figure out what we needed to do. And as intelligence gathered up that the attack was carried out by Al-Qaeda, our mission focus became laser-like and evolved to influence essentially the next 2 decades of my career. It was the family support, near and far, that enabled me to continue to contribute to the military mission that came after 9/11. And as I look to the future, as I look to your future, I'd like to remind you all, not that you need it, of how important family is. Remember them, love them, and cherish them. For life is short. Don't let it get away. A few years later, I was asked to do a rotational developmental assignment down at the supervisor of shipbuilding in Pascagoula. For those who don't know Soup Ships, this is a contract management oversight function, a little bit like the Defense Contract Management Agency, but for ships. The Soup Ship deputy was selected to go to school for a year, and I was asked to cover as acting. But I was also tasked with combining Soup Ship Pascagoula with Soup Ship New Orleans, and more importantly, reduce headcount by 15%. We accomplished the combination of 2 organizations as a merger, not a takeover, with the 15% reduction without any adverse separations of the personnel. I'm very proud of that, even to this day, because the people are what makes the organization. It required a lot of broad communications internally and externally. We secured authorizations from headquarters and Congress to offer and incentivize separations. And through a huge amount of outreach, including the union, we were able to, even though it wasn't easy and it wasn't smooth, move the enterprise across the goal line to achieve that consolidation. This skill would serve me well throughout my career, including at US Transcom as we launched into COVID. And as we did full-time telework, and then, in my opinion, unfortunately, as we came back from full-time telework. but we execute the policies that we are given. I encourage you all to communicate broadly, to share everything that you know, and acknowledge what you don't know. Sometimes people think you're keeping secrets. We're not. We just don't know. So share broadly. It ensures that the workforce better understands the situation in hand, and the discussion will provide insights into what yet needs to be done. As the General mentioned, in 2013, 12 years ago, I was appointed to the SES and tasked to bring some consistency to services acquisition, including writing that instruction. At the time, the amount of money was about $184 billion a year spent on services, half of all the contract dollars. And it was decentralized. I used to say that anyone with $1 and a willing contracting officer can go buy services. It was really kind of true. Now, I got quoted on that, and I had to answer to the undersecretary, is that really true? And it's like, yes, it is, but I was a little more careful when talking to the press there. As you can imagine, more oversight is not wanted, especially oversight that generates from the Pentagon. But this story is not about the communications, although there was a lot about that. This is a story about best intentions running into reality. I was and am still proud of the instruction, and I felt that the policy provided flexibility to the requirements owners and the contracting officers. And it all seemed like a good idea until I got here. I thought I was doing pretty good by writing this instruction, and then it ran headlong into reality. The services that U.S. Transcom purchases, like all other service procurements, are unique. The difficulty in creating a one-size-fits-all oversight, even with flexibility, is that that oversight requires overhead and can exceed the return on investment. So the lesson I learned, despite how proud I am in introducing some consistency, and one that I ask you to contemplate as you continue, is to think outside the box, build broader teams. The Pentagon, I used to think that the Pentagon had it all under control because they're smart people, right? And then I got there, and it's like, wait a minute. I'm one of those people, you know? And then I work with those folks, and it's like, they're not any smarter than I am. So build those broad teams. Empathize with stakeholders on how you can actually how they may actually interpret the new product, initiative, policy, and evaluate the ROI. None of us is as smart as all of us, so use that to your advantage. My last story before the thank yous. I arrived at Transcom in February of 2019. It was very, very cold. TCAQ has changed a lot in those 6 years, from pre-COVID to COVID to now post-COVID. Going to full telework for medical protections, social distancing, making masks, learning the IT for Zoom calls and Teams, not knowing how long we would be out of the office and what a return to the office might look like when it did happen. I appreciate all of the efforts that TCAQ and U.S. Transcom put in so that we could execute our mission during that COVID disruption. It is something to be incredibly proud of. TCAQ is designed to provide contracting solutions to problems, including vendor-provided strategic lift, transportation services, and IT solutions. We have had great success across TCAQ, even though a lot of those solutions are things that have never been done before. When you attempt to do something that's never been done before, you may not get it right the first time. That's okay. But remember, when you get a setback, focus on that 95% of how you react. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move on with the lessons learned. There have been some setbacks, and there will be setbacks in your future, I guarantee it. Ensure that you keep your focus on the mission execution. The warfighter needs the solutions, and TCAQ and U.S. Transcom are uniquely positioned to provide them. These few stories provide a bit of insight into the depths of my gratitude and what I've learned over my career. I also want to thank those who have been part of that career. I would like to start by thanking all of the U.S. Transcom leaders, past and present, for working the strategic mission for the warfighter. I've enjoyed working with all of you and learned something from everyone. Keep up the good work. I would like to thank all of TCAQ. I appreciate each and every one of you who carry out the day-to-day execution, Without your efforts, none of the commercial capabilities that General Reed highlighted and that we bring to bear would have ever happened for the warfighter. I appreciate my leadership team's efforts, both the front office and the division chiefs, in implementing my vision and executing TCAQ responsibilities and initiatives. I am proud of the entire team. I will miss TCAQ the most of everything that I have accomplished over my career. I'd like to thank all my mentors, my teammates, and coworkers throughout my career. There are far too many to name, but a few standouts deserve special recognition. Mike Eager, who hired me as an inexperienced engineering grad and put me on the path to a wonderful, rewarding career. Susan Widener, who managed that mid-career program that I talked about and kept an eye out for a CDP field participant as the world changed underneath our feet on the second day on the job. To Bruce Sharp, who provided me a model on what an SES should be and made it fun. I still laugh about a lot of the things that he did, things that I'm not going to share here. And Alan Estevez, who provided behind-the-scenes mentoring and help to ensure that I realized my SES potential. I'd like to thank all of my siblings and siblings-in-laws, if that's a thing, including Michelle and Keith, Charlie and Courtney, Kim and Tim, Kevin and Michelle. And I hope Kevin and Michelle are streaming. It's good to see you. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the time that you have spent being good brothers and sisters. I have never had to worry about what was happening at home because you guys were always on top of it and supporting all my family. I'd like to thank my late father-in-law, Harold Spond, and his wife, Jeannie, for welcoming me into the family when I married Kelly all those years ago, despite being a nerd. I'd like to thank my parents, Mike and Fran. You instilled in me a drive for service, growth, and leadership, and I appreciate all that you've done for me and my family, not only over my career, but over my entire life. I'd like to thank my kids and their partners, Ben and his wife, HJ, Alex and her new fiancé, Tim. You've grown into fine adults. Your mother and I are incredibly proud of you. It means a lot that all four of you were able to make the ceremony, and I know that I could not have done what I have accomplished without your support throughout the moves, promotions, and challenges. Lastly, I'd like to thank my wife, Kelly, for without her support, without her looking at all the issues from all sides, without her keeping the home fires burning, none of this would have been possible. I am in her debt for giving up her career so that we could move around and further my career. I also appreciate all of the effort that she put into the retirement celebration. Kelly, autumn is bringing you some flowers, a small token of my thanks and love for all you've done over the last 37 years. I look forward to building the next chapter of our story together as we move into our home in Northwest Indiana and spend time with our family, friends, and the dog. I love you so very much. As I look to the future, our adversaries are capable, but they are burdened with top-heavy state oversight mechanisms and the need to control their citizens. Use our creativity, drive, flexibilities, and capabilities to create tactical uncertainties for them. Create strategic certainties that reassure our friends, partners, and allies. Through your efforts in that, I am confident in our ability to deter and, failing that, win any conflict against our adversaries. Keep up the hard work in meeting the mission for our warfighters. I hope I was the leader you deserved. You are always the teammates that I needed. Thank you for all you have done and will do in the future. Thank you. Be kind and Godspeed.
Thank you and congratulations, Mr. Brennan. We will now furl Mr. Brennan's personal flag. Mr. Brennan's flag will be furled by the United States Transportation Command Joint Service Color Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the departure of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please come forward and congratulate Mr. Brennan and his family. The receiving line will start on your left. A reception will take place in the rear of the ballroom. Thank you for attending and sharing this special day.